Hello everyone, and welcome to a very nice game from the 7th Lichess titled Arena. It's a game between world champion Magnus Carlsen, who played under the handle GM manwithavan. Now I have no idea. I've heard some stories on the internet that he was actually playing from a van via a mobile device such as a tablet or a smartphone. Now while this may or may not be true, it's still a very nice game and still a very nice story. So I decided to share it. He's playing against 19-year-old American chess prodigy Akshat, also known as Grandmaster Baba Ramdev on Lichess, and it's really a nice game. Okay, you might argue that it's silly showing a bullet game, but to me it's extremely interesting how really strong grandmasters make very principled decisions in such low time controls. So it's very interesting also how Carlsen, every time he plays in the Lichess titled Arena, he always applies via his real handle, either Magnus Carlsen or Dr. Frankenstein. But then when the tournament actually starts, his real handle just disappears, and then everyone tries to figure out under which handle he's currently playing. So this time it was Grandmaster manwithavan, and I kind of have a question for you. Do you think he would score a better result if everyone knew they were playing against Magnus Carlsen, or would he perhaps score a better result in a tournament when no one has an idea that they're actually playing against the world champion? So would they be nervous if they knew they were playing against Carlsen and then blunder more often, or make poor moves, or would they try real hard and really concentrate to try and beat world champion? Which brings me to this very interesting tweet by international master Erik Rosen. He tweeted that it's been on his bucket list for a while to play Magnus Carlsen in chess, and he says that today he unknowingly played him in the Lichess titled Arena and won. There you have it, international master Erik Rosen, a victory against GM manwithavan. So it's very interesting. Is it better for Carlsen to play under his real handle or under a different handle every time? But okay, that being said, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's check out this very nice game. Carlsen opens with e4, we have e6, the French defense, knight c3, d5, d4 now, and knight to f6, transposing into the classical variation. E captures, we have the exchange variation, and bishop to g5. Bishop to d6, we have queen d2, c6, Carlsen castles queenside, and Chandra castles kingside. So we have opposite castles, and there will definitely be an attack on both sides of the board. Bishop to d3, eyeing that h7 pawn, knight bd7, and f3 now. Controlling this knight, not allowing any squares for him, but also preparing g4, h4, and so on and so on. Queen to c7, and here we have knight g to e2. Of course, black will never capture, for example, a pawn like this only opens up the h-file for white, but not only that, in this instance it will lose by force after bishop to h6. You're now threatening queen to g5, and pretty much whatever you do, if you go back, you get bishop captures on g7, even this. King captures, you can go queen g5 check, king h8, and now bishop captures on h7 would be sufficient. Knight captures, rook captures, and everything would fall in place here. After g3, there's no defense against rook captures, h2, and checkmate. So after knight g2, b5, Chandra simply starts off a queenside attack. We have g4, Carlsen starts pushing on the king side, we have b4, and now knight to b1. a5, we have knight to g3, and now a4. Knight to f5, Carlsen has to move the knight to either exchange it for a bishop here, or to increase pressure on the king side. But also while the knight is on g3, you can't really push the h-pawn, as black would simply capture this knight. So okay, b3, a captures on b3, a captures on b3, and now it seems like c3 would be a better move than what Carlsen played, but it's really not. Even though this seems like a very strong structure, c5 really tears it apart. So Carlsen simply captures the pawn here. C captures on b3, and now rook to a1. A very nice active move, controlling the knight and preparing to continue the attack on the queen side. Rook h to e1 by Carlsen. And okay, c5. We have knight captures on d6, Carlsen eliminates this bishop, and now we have queen captures on d6. And okay, although this is a pre-moved capture since it's a bullet game, but for some of you who are perhaps new to chess, there's something in chess that's called an automatic recapture. Sometimes your opponent will capture something like we had here, knight captures bishop, and then your first inclination would be to recapture the knight immediately. Well, there is a better move in the position, which is c captures on d4. A nice Zwischenzug or an in-between move. First you give a little check, and after white deals with this check, now you can either recapture the knight or simply continue the attack, knight to c5. Here the threat is of course knight captures b3 with checkmate, as the bishop on c2 is pinned, and after white deals with this, let's say queen to b4, there's d3. So a lot of interesting ideas here. Of course, if you capture, the bishop is still pinned, you're losing the queen here. So just putting it out there, never do an automatic recapture. So okay, queen captures on d6, and now we have queen to f4. Carlsen wants to trade queens as his king is very exposed on c1. Queen c6, we have king to d2, you have to run away, rook to a2, and now d captures on c5. Rook captures on b2 with check, and here Carlsen plays king to c3, he attacks the rook with his king. Rook to a2, and now comes queen to d6. Again, Carlsen offers a trade of queens, and here a queen trade would definitely relieve a lot of pressure for white, so black finds a nice way to continue the attack. d4, this is the strongest move. You check the king, and also now the queen is able to capture on f3. And here you definitely have to capture on d4, but to make such a decision in a bullet game is quite admirable, as you're bringing your king to d4. But okay, let's say if white tries something like queen to b4, then queen to a8 is very dangerous. The queen is coming to a5, and after you play anything, let's say bishop captures, then you get queen to a5, king moves, now comes knight recaptures, and you will once again have to go, for example, to d4, and then rook to d8 will pick up the queen, and black wins here. So, after d4 check, we have king captures on d4 by Carlsen, queen captures on f3, and now bishop captures on f6. Knight captures on f6, and now g5. Carlsen continues attacking. He wants to displace this knight from f6, and pretends like his king isn't even on d4. Queen g4 check, king moves, and now queen captures on g5. So Chandra gets rid of that pawn, he keeps his knight on f6, and now we have rook to e5. A nice rook lift with a tempo on the queen, preparing doubling of the rooks on the e file. Queen to f4, rook to e1, and now queen captures on h2. With some ideas of perhaps coming to b2 with check, so Carlsen first moves the king. King b4, we have queen to f4 check, and now bishop to c4. And here it's very black is better here, but it's also not that easy to play this for black. For example, if you're not careful, if you move the knight, let's say knight to g4, do you see how white can win instantly here? Feel free to pause the video and try to find. There is a very nice idea. I'll give you a couple of seconds if you want to decide whether to do it or not. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent checkmater in 2. And for those who just want to enjoy the show, queen captures on f8, of course, is the idea. Only move king captures, and now rook to e8 will be checkmate. Okay, bishop to c4, and now bishop to a6. We have knight to c3, the strongest move. And it doesn't really make all that much sense to move the rook, although you can do it, for example, rook c2, but then knight to e4 is coming. You want to remove this knight from f6, and then the position will be much better for white. So let's say knight d7, you offer the knight to capture the rook, but then comes rook to e8, and now you offer the queen here. Queen captures, knight captures on d6, queen captures, knight captures, bishop captures on c4, and after knight captures on c4, black is up a pawn, but white has this very strong passed pawn, also a nice fast pawn, so white would be, of course, better here. So okay, knight c3, we have bishop captures, knight captures on a2, Carlsen wins the exchange here, and now bishop back to e6. And it's a very nice capture, because you have to see, while being only seconds down on the clock, that there's no actual good discovery with the bishop. But all of the pieces are on dark squares, so hopefully there isn't no good discoveries for black. Bishop e6 with a discovered check, king to a3, and now rook to a8 with check. King to b2, and now queen to f2 with check. Rook 1 to e2, blocking. queen to f3, and now comes rook captures on e6. Carlsen doesn't bother with knight to c3, although it is the best move. You don't want to allow black any chances. So it's with only seconds on the clock, it's better to simply capture the bishop, remove the threat of queen captures on b3, f captures, and now queen captures on e6 with check, king to h8, and only now knight to c3. So here the material on the board is completely equal, but again Carlsen has a very strong passed pawn, and it will be very hard to stop it, especially with seconds on the clock. h6, we have c6, and here you should simply continue, for example, with h5 or something, try and push. But here Chandra plays knight to g4, and here the position is completely lost for black after c7. Now the black queen can't help out with the defense of the back rank because she's stuck defending the knight on g4. So an unfortunate blunder, but you know, it's bullet. King h7, we have c8, Carlsen brings another queen into the game, captures, knight to f6, queen to e6, and now queen to g4. We have b4, these are all now pre-moves as, you know, they have very little time on the clock, but the position is winning for white, so it doesn't really matter. Although black can even capture the pawn here, but black also pre-moved, queen g6. We have b5, h6, and now a queen to b3. With only seconds on the clock, Carlsen finds that this, combined with c2, will be the easiest way to exchange queens, and then he will be able to push his pawn to victory. Knight g4, we have queen c2, king h6, captures, now b6. Knight to f6, the knight is in time to stop the pawn from promotion. We have b7, knight here, and now rook to d1. Knight b8, we have rook check, king moves, and now knight to d5. Knight to a6, here Carlsen doesn't even capture it, as he probably pre-moved knight to f4, but it doesn't matter as there was no time on the clock left for Baba Ramdev or Grandmaster Akshat Chandra, and here he lost the game on time. But yeah, I mean, such an eventful fight, and a 55 moves played with only 1 minute per player. I think it was a very nice game, and even though it's a bullet game, I think it was worth showing. If for nothing, for entertainment purposes. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. And here we have the standings of the 7th Lichess titled arena. The tournament was won by international master Mutpro, who is an international master from Vietnam called Min Le. Second place was Grandmaster Zaven Chesmood, who not sure who he was, but he does have in the description of his profile that he was a former junior world chess champion from Armenia, so definitely he's Zaven Andriasyan from Armenia. He says that the only way to really learn chess well is to get in the mood for chess, so probably that's why the nickname is Zaven Chessmood. And in third place, Grandmaster manwithavan or Magnus Carlsen. Then we have Grandmaster Rebecca Harris, that's Daniel Naroditsky, I believe, then Georg Mayer, International Master Dark Ghoul, then International Master Shrek David, then FIDE Master Gneis, Grandmaster Retired 93, don't know who that is, and in 10th place, Grandmaster Baba Ramdev, who you already saw in this game. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Agadmator's dog, Julian Schoen, John Abraham, Gary Wren, and Benjamin Toleren for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to try and answer the question I asked in the beginning of the video. Do you think Carlsen's result would be better in a tournament if everyone knew who he was, or if he was anonymous until the end of the tournament? So yeah, thank you all, and I'll see you soon, most likely continuing the Bobby Fischer series.